My name is Josh Payne. We're here in Concordia, Missouri, which is about an hour to the east of Kansas City. We're here at my farm, my family farm that's been in the family for 70 years. And we're here to talk about cover crops. My grandpa bought this farm in the 1950s. He went ahead, the first thing that he did was he took out every tree and every fence and planted it all into corn and soy, and we had a confinement hog operation. When my wife and I wanted to move to a small town and have kids, he said, "Why don't you come in?" And so I farmed with him. All of that was just very conventional. Heavy tillage corn, heavy tillage soy. By that time, he had gotten rid of the hogs. So just corn and soy, corn and soy. At some point in there, about 2 or 3 years in, after a lot of hard conversations, we decided to try cover crops. We moved into a very continuous living cover system. In which we always had, we would do corn, we would do cereal rye, we would do soybeans, we'd follow it up with wheat, and then we'd have a big cover that we would graze with cattle in the late fall and winter from leased cattle from somebody else. Now we do a continuous grazing system largely fueled by annuals and a perennial mix. So now we have about 1,000 sheep. We also are going to finish about 1,000 pigs every year in the future. So when we started planting cover crops, we kept it pretty simple. We just followed up we followed up corn with cereal rye. We went through this phase where there was 15 or 20 or 30 different species. And then we kind of backed off. So there's a lady named Christine Jones from Australia who talks about functional diversity. And so if we can get 4 different families of plants into a mix, that might be 5 or 6 species or 4 species. That's really the diversity that's necessary for that crop. And so we try to do that every time that we possibly can. That being said, in a corn-soy rotation in our context, diversity doesn't always work. So one of the best scenarios here for just a corn-soy rotation right here is corn followed by a heavy cereal rye, followed by soybeans, followed by, I've got a buddy that does 30-inch winter wheat. And it's just enough to hold the soil, just enough to maintain microbial life. And then he plants corn into that green, and there's not much nutrient tie-up. So diversity is great, but it also has to fit the context and the what's coming in next. I think maybe one of the most important ways to really cash flow cover crops, to make those pay, is to be able to graze at different times of the year. If you can graze, if you have corn, you have dry matter in the stover, you have some energy in the corn, you throw some cereal rye out there, some winter wheat out there, and you have grazing for a lot of the winter. Even if you just get a couple months of grazing in March and April before you're going to plant soybeans, you're talking about $90 to $100 per acre worth of grazing, right? And so, to understand the economic value of that is big. But I think also what we miss in that scenario is that we talk about our kids and we talk about generations moving on. Cover crops plus grazing livestock is a really nice way to be able to help add another job to the farm. If you want your kids to come back, have them do something meaningful, which could honestly be grazing. It fits really nicely in that scenario. So the best way to get started is to plant something in the ground and to lease some cattle from the neighbors. Unfortunately, a lot of times, me, when we started grazing, I had zero experience. And so that's a scary step, the step of putting in fence. What am I going to do for water for the winter or for the spring? All of the issues that you're going to run into are solvable. People have figured that out before. We know how to get a hay bale on an old running gear to where it's easy for you to move around. We have virtual collars now that are affordable, that are accessible, that you can put on sheep, that you can put on cattle. So you could actually go out into a 100-acre pasture, put one strand of hot wire up, and you have these collars. You can see them from your phone, you can move them from your phone, you can set up whatever kind of grazing scenario that is. If I had to give somebody an advice, it might be hard to get livestock, right? But if you say you have 1,000 acres, if you're able to take 30 or 40, turn that into a pasture, turn that into a annual cover crop mix that you can graze, that you always have somewhere to put cattle, and then you can run them out from the different fields. In general, animals love cover crops. They're annuals, they have high energy, they often have high proteins, so they're just really a lush option for animals to eat. But the animals will also let you know what they're needing. If we let our sheep out and there's cereal rye and clover and radishes, some seasons of the year, they'll just be hammering just the clover, and they'll leave the rest of that stuff. And so like one of the challenges with that is, how do you layer some of these annuals so that you have grazing not just at one time? Or how do you graze it hard enough that you maximize use of that? Like, my best answer for that is talk to your cover crop salesman if you're worried about, what you can graze, what's going to be good for your animals. One of the big concerns I hear from row crop farmers often is the idea that if I go graze cattle in the winter on a cornfield, is they're just going to destroy that land. What we like to do in that scenario, again, everything has solutions, right? There's a problem, everything has a solution. So I like to have a small sacrifice area. So if I can have my water in an area, a spot that I can feed if I need to, a spot that I can put hay bales if I need to, and if it gets really wet, I can take this 4 or 5 acre sacrifice area, like section that off, and then just run animals in there. When I'm done, I can just kind of fix that area with whatever tillage tool I need to, and then go back into my crop. The other big challenge is shade. We have a cornfield, and it's going to be a cornfield next year, so we're not going to go plant a bunch of trees, right? There's very affordable portable shades out there. So plenty of scenarios, problems, always a solution. If you're wondering why you should try to graze cover crops, I think the answer goes back to like for me, and what a lot of farmers do is it's how do I add value to my farm so that I can continue to do what I love to do. Like, I love to be here on the farm. I love to be like working with soil. And if I can add an extra $50 or $80 or $100 per acre, in a way that increases soil biology, that adds carbon to my soil, man, that's a real win-win. And then on top of that, if I can do that in a really thoughtful, systematic way that allows us to have enough livestock to justify another full-time job, then not only am I doing a good job of keeping myself on the farm, I'm also making sure that my kids have a place and their kids have a place. So I think a really thoughtful grazing situation can put all of that together here on one farm. You don't have to go pick up another 1,000 acres to get your kids there. You could add that with, grazing in different ways.